that's that. All right, so I started off giving this talk. I think I gave it last year, not 2 months ago, but 14 months ago at DragonCon for the Makers and Robotics track. And I think this is only the second time I've given this talk, so you guys are still kind of the guinea pigs on it. But this first slide actually comes from one of the first talks I ever did at LibertyCon about the singularity. This is actually pulled straight out of Ray Kurzweil's book, The Coming Singularity. And it talks about what the future's going to be like, because that's what it's all about. And he makes the case, in this case, by this logarithmic plot of, how did he put it? Key events, major milestones that happen in the development, evolution of mankind, and how much time there is between those key events. And so he's got about, it says a list of 15, it looks like there's more data points in there than that. But he's taken 15 different sources, he's put them all together, he's plotted them up there, and he's basically trying to make the argument that as we move forward and progress, we're moving this way down the chart in case you're wondering. So we move forward and progress, the time in between major events, major life-changing events, shrinks dramatically. This is log, so that tells you how dramatically. We tried to draw this out on one of your scale to be like this hockey stick looking thing, right? So I went ahead and took his work and did a straight line fit on it, just to show you, make it a little easier for you, show you where it's headed. So this is time back in the past. This is time between major events. So the part we are interested in is this part down here, present time. If that plot can be taken to be a predictor, what you see is in present time, right about here, I set this thing down, or it's going to keep bringing that mouse pointer up and distracting it. At present time, it only looks like there's maybe 15, 20 years in between major events, because this is your 10 mark right here, that's your 100 mark right there. And so you got to think out in logarithmic terms, but how far away is the 10 from that 10 is that intercept? It's not quite on the 10, it's not every 10 years according to this flag. Of course you can change the fit, and it would be. And I actually do kind of think it's probably more like every 10 years there's a major life-changing event. We don't even realize it. Point is robotics is going to be one of them. So I added the quotes too. I love that 100 years ago we had Lord Kelvin saying, there's nothing new to be discovered in physics now. All that remains is more and more precise measurement. 1900 he said this. In 1905,
he was proven wrong.
You know where I'm going? What happened in 1905? Einstein explained the photoelectric effect. And he had to explain it using quantum theory for electromagnetic waves. He's like, oh, a wave's not always a wave. Sometimes it's a photon. And that led to, well, particle's not always a particle, sometimes a wave. So the other joke, of course, is not long after this, there was a young man that went to his college advisor, and he said, okay, I'm a concert pianist. I'm good at it. I go to concert halls and people show up and listen to me. And I kind of like this physics thing too. I'm good at that too. Can't do both things. What career should I pursue? And his advisor said, well, this whole physics thing, kind of dead end. You should definitely work on being a concert pianist. Anybody heard this story? Yeah, well, kids being kids, right, 20-somethings, they're going to do the opposite of whatever you tell them to do. Erwin Schrödinger.
Good thing. So did he do it or did he not do it is the question. He wasn't in a box.
He might be playing the piano somewhere.
In a box.
In a box somewhere. So, okay, so then we throw in the next quote that's much more current, Stephen Hawking. And it's funny, you can also go back in time and find quotes like this even in, the ancient times. Even the ancient Greeks occasionally said things like this. So predicting the future is always dicey business, right? But Stephen Hawking says the world has changed far more in the past 100 years than in any other century in history. The reason is not political or economic, but technological. Technologies have flowed directly from advances in basic science. Absolutely. And that's what the whole talk's about. So that's your intro. This is more from the Coming Singularity. This is the original slide. We won't dwell on it for long because we go to the next step right behind it. This is the original slide off the Kurzweil website, the Kurzweil talk that I gave.
Even Intel
5 years ago.
Even Intel saved Moore's laws about on its course.
It has. Fortunately,
We're still working on quantum computers. So.
yeah. Fortunately, the cavalry's coming over the hill. You want to?
You need to be quiet, sir.
All right. So yeah, this is from the Kurzweil talk. This is expanded out a little bit. This is a logarithmic plot again, but you can see that it's not even a straight line here. It's still kind of curving up. And yeah, the rule used to be that the power of computing, power of microprocessors, number of transistors in the chip, however you want to put it, doubled every 12 months. And this plot certainly bears that out. With a slight upward curvature, you might even think that it's doing more than doubling on some scale. But it is flattening out. Because that graph stopped at the year 2000, somewhere along the way when I was preparing the talk, I don't think it was this one. I actually think it was when I revamped the singularity talk for Reagan. I went out and checked, and it was still good to 2011. If you plotted it out, you did a straight line fit on it. Now again, that is a logarithmic curve. So if you plotted it out and still did a straight line fit on it, it was still following that logarithm type growth, that exponential type growth. The experts are now saying, the last article I read, see that stops at 2011, right? So here we are already 5 years ahead of that. And now the experts are saying, for a couple of years they said, well, now it's more like 18 months. We double every 18 months.
Okay.
And now they're even saying, actually we double every 2 years now. So that curve is going to flatten out. It is going to hit a limit.
Okay,
And it's
good.
got to, right? Because there comes a point where you're cramming these transistors so closely together in these integrated circuits that the electrons are literally tunneling through the wires and interfering with the other transistors on the IC. So we've gotten the chips so small, the integration level of the chips so fine, that we're actually starting to see some of those quantum effects that we were just talking about. We're actually starting to see electron tunneling interfering with digital computers. The last thing you want in a digital computer is noise, right? Especially if you're talking about in the microprocessor itself. So yeah, this is going to top out on us. All right, stick a pin in that. I like to talk about this. This is sort of a different viewpoint of all of it. And say, there's also another problem that sort of goes against what Kurzweil is predicting, which is, this is a supercomputer made by IBM. It has 1.5 petabytes of memory in it. And it simulates the human brain at 1/500th of the speed. They can scale that computer up so that it could run a human brain simulation in real time. If they did, it would take 12 gigawatts of power, which is the power requirements of Manhattan.
Yeah.
So,
What's the time frame on the 12 gigawatts?
what do you mean, the time frame? It would be
It
like,
would consume to one process of a human human brain.
Yes.
12 gigawatts
Yes.
per process.
Yes. You could scale the server farm up to the point that the thing would actually act like a human brain, you know, in real time. But you'd have to turn off the power in Manhattan so you could do it. Now,
Okay.
It'd be worth it.
yeah, yeah, trade off Manhattan for one human brain, yeah, that might be a good trade-off.
Depending on the human brain for training.
So
Yeah,
this-
if you turned off the power in Manhattan for that long, you'd have another baby boom.
Oh God, and then we'd have more of them.
Exactly.
All right, so this graph is fun because it shows the evolution, if you will, of all these chips. This is power density down here. This is clock frequency. Again, it follows this forest line curve, but each new one requires more power. And the power to processing power ratio of the human brain is down here. So we're going in the opposite direction. So it may not be that the problem is processing speed. It might be that we just hit some sort of limit in terms of power, you know, to have a computer that can do that. Fortunately,
I'm gonna be cool.
the cavalry's coming over the hill, right? So, yeah, we did a talk on quantum computing at LibertyCon.
I was there.
Oh, that's the one you went to. You remember what I said?
It was really good.
You remember what I said when I started the talk?
About how,
I said this talk kicked my ass like I owed it money. Because it is just so deep and so technical and so far outside of most people's everyday experience that it was hard to give, even to a group of engineers and scientists, a 50-minute talk that made any sense about what quantum computing was or what it's going to do for us, right? You just couldn't cover it 50 minutes. I mean, and I did go back and we had to talk about Schrodinger's cat, and we had to talk about the Stern-Gerlach experiment, and we had to talk about superposition, and all those cool things that we're going to take advantage of in quantum computing.
oh, trust me, we could have sat there for 3 hours
Oh, we could have easily sat there for 3 hours.
and had a ball.
I did not drop the slide on this talk, but the other thing about quantum computing is it is not some abstract academic thing that might show up one day. You can go to an IBM website, you can register for free, and you can program a quantum computer online thanks to IBM. You can actually get runtime with a real quantum computer. And it's not like any other kind of programming I've ever done. And, the thing I used to say is, I've been programming for 20 years. I know how to tell a bit, how to put an if statement in and tell a Boolean to be true or false. I have no idea how to tell a Boolean. I don't know. You go figure it out. And then have the computer actually do something with that. But that's exactly what quantum computers are going to do for you. It's going to give computers a level of intuition, for lack of a better word, that is going to very closely simulate what we call intuition in the human brain. We don't know all the details, but we can kind of figure out what feels right, and we can start from there. And now you've got a computer that can do that very thing. And it's there. You don't want to read the highlight?
It's one step closer to Star Trek, where basically they tell the computer, this is what I want. The computer figures out the program.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's awesome.
Yeah. We talk about robotics and replacing your jobs, people losing their jobs. It's not just manual labor. Programmers are getting replaced. The people that used to tell the systems how to do the things to replace the laborers are now no longer part of the picture. It's coming. What's it say? I'll just read it. Quantum computers are different from digital computers based on transistors, whereas digital computers require data to be encoded in binary bits. Quantum compilation uses quantum properties to represent data and perform operations on these data. That wasn't all that enlightening. It doesn't, again, it just goes back to the point that when you set a bit in a quantum computer, it doesn't have to be 1 or 0. It can be 1, 0, or any state in between, which is what that sphere is representing there. Any state in between that. Like Schrodinger's cat, right? Superposition principle. Doesn't have to be alive or dead. It could be somewhere in the middle, and we'll figure it out later depending on the conditions around it. So, we put all this together. This is still, no, actually, I think I made this slide part of this talk. I'm saying expect major advances in AI over the next 5 years, paving the way for sophisticated autonomous robots by 2023. That was a year ago. I've already got data now to show that I was off by 2 years. Call it 2021. And I'm usually pretty conservative on my predictions, and as usual, I was conservative on that prediction too. What are the big drivers behind it? We can't go into the technology, but we can, not in a 50-minute talk to any depth. You've already got the technological part of the conversation we're going to have. So we have to talk about the social factors. One social factor is, everybody knows, I think everybody knows, that Japan is getting older. Their reproductive rate is way lower than it used to be. And so, yeah, well, everywhere in the first world, right? So, nation's total population will fall by 25% to 95.2 million in 2050. Japan's elderly population, age 65 or older, comprised 20% of the nation's population in 2006. That percentage will increase to almost 40%. So the representation of old people in Japan's population is going to double over the next 30 years. Now, the other thing that's cool about Japan is they love technology. So when we're afraid of robots, they're going to embrace it. And so they literally are going to need these robots for healthcare. There's going to be a class of people that are aging and need health care and need somebody to look after them that literally do not have any sons or daughters that are going to be there to watch after them. And the robot is going to take that role and probably do a better job of it. Given the way that some young people act. I got to throw that one in there, Robot Frank. That was suggested to me when I took an online course on robotics from some Australian guy. He loves this movie. I watched it. I can see why he loves the movie. I think you can get it on Netflix for free. I think that's where I watched it. It's an interesting.
I enjoyed it.
Oh, good. You've seen it. Who said that? Yeah, it's an interesting foray into what's going to happen in society.
It's effectively an elderly gentleman whose children aren't around because they're all running separate companies, have their own family, XYZ reason, and he doesn't trust the robot, but they buy the robot to take care of him.
Because none of them want to do it, right? They're all too busy doing their own thing.
They're all too busy with the world, and he ends up learning to trust the robot, and the robot ends up being closer to him than the rest of his children by the end.
Throwing on top of that this guy is a retired ex-jewel thief who spent time in prison, and he wants to do one more heist.
Oh, that's right. That's the big twist.
And the robot's like, this goes against my programming. So the robot is literally conflicted between being loyal to this guy that he's taken care of and been assigned to take care of, and breaking all this moral code to do what he wants her to do. It's a very dry movie. Nothing blows up. Nobody gets whacked in it. It's not the
It goes against everything American movies are made.
Right. It's not the friggin' Avengers or anything. But if you're willing to sit down and pay attention for 2 hours and not see anything blow up, it's a really good movie.
It has quite a bit of emotional depth
Yes.
that I feel most movies lack.
Yes.
Okay, so this is the part where we have to very carefully skirt around the
Yes.
PG-13.
It's their future.
What's that?
It's their future.
Yeah, it is their future.
I'm hoping it's.
Nowadays, you can hear the guy on what the Big Bang Theory talk about it, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Part of what's going to make robots become more accepted is that they're, people are afraid of it. They're different. The technology. Should we trust this artificial intelligence over our own? Part of how you get around that is you make the robot look more and more like the people you know.
You humanize it.
And they've already made huge inroads in certain industries to make
Yep.
robots and other mechanical devices look as human as they possibly can. That also goes with things like talking to them. The quote on here, this guy's making a sex doll that you can have a conversation with. And he started with the head, but the quote is, Mr. McCullen says the Robotics head, which can be attached to an existing real doll body, will cost around $10,000 and be commercially available in 2 years. 2015 is the timeline. So if he's on track, we're talking about next year.
They're already ahead of schedule on that. They are actually working on integrating doing chores, things of that nature. A friend of mine sent me an article and I read it.
I'm not surprised.
They are very efficient. They can clean plates, they can do the dishes, they can do the laundry. They can tell if the laundry's been set too long and it's starting to build it. There are smell sensors in that. There are a couple of other things that I can't remember for the article, but it was very interesting and very enlightening as to they actually have they're starting to put heart rate monitors inside of them to monitor you while you're walking around. Effectively, it's a companion, a life companion. And they're afraid that all the young men in Japan are just going to buy these life companions because they're better than real life women because they don't complain, they don't care if you yell at them, they don't. They're just easier to deal with. And
The full body, which he will begin developing next, will most likely cost between $30,000 and $60,000.
I think that price range
That's
is
now.
very accurate.
It's now. It's a freaking car, right? You could have a car, you could have a sex doll that does everything you want it to do. And make the same payments. My wife's sitting in the room, so I won't...
Yeah, you need to move on.
We can't move on yet. You mentioned Japan. Japan's not even the big one here. The big one here is China.
China's not that worried about it though because they already have a population issue.
They're not worried about reproducing. There's 1.2 men for every woman in China. There's 1.2 billion people in China. That means there's 200 million men that will never get married, in all likelihood, in China, which is becoming more and more wealthy every day, and even the rank and file are going to be able to come up with the $60,000 needed to have a companion.
If not more, for the extra that they want added on XYZ.
So, okay, I put the little disclaimer at the bottom. Really, I didn't mean for this to become a talk about sex robots, but it is an important topic here, right?
Then when you're talking about robotics,
Yeah.
that is the future.
And we're talking about real android robots, right? That look like humans.
Several of the breakthroughs that he made while doing this have helped other fields in robotics because the heart sensors, that robot can look at you and see if you're having a heart attack.
And the trick,
That's a fantastic breakthrough.
and the trick is not, the reason we're not talking about it, right? The trick is that the kinematics, the servo motors, all the technical stuff has been done since the 70s. There's industrial robots out there that can literally do almost anything you want them to do. And that's not even a question anymore to make it move right, keep its balance, or any of that kind of stuff. The real hurdle right now is to make them look like humans.
And make them self-cleaning.
Self-cleaning, battery power, so they don't run down on you after 30 minutes. You want them to last a solid day.
But if you look at it, 30 to 40 years.
Yeah.
The uncanny valley.
Well, you know we had to talk about it.
Yes. I knew it was coming.
So again, it's the entertainment. I think the way I put it here is the entertainment industry is driving the gap up from the uncanny valley. How we doing on time? Oh yeah, we're only 25 minutes in. We're doing good. So who doesn't know about the uncanny valley? There's a handful of people in here. Okay, so yeah, it's important. Yeah, if you read the stuff at the bottom, hypothesized emotional response of subjects is plotted against anthropomorphism of a robot. Following Maury's statement, who I think was the guy that originally proposed it, the uncanny valley is a region of negative emotional responses towards robot that seem almost, but not quite right. Movement amplifies the emotional response. So if you're sitting there still and you're just talking about a doll that's not moving, the curve's much flatter. We're talking about robots, we don't care about the flat one, right? We care about it's got to move right, it's got to talk right, it's got to sound right, it's got to animate correctly. And the response is much stronger. That's the dash line. But look at where we are. They're already saying that the best animated robot type thing is this Banraku puppet troupe. Again, Japan.
Yep.
Yeah.
But their whole stage presentation is about making robotics and things that look as human as possible and having people ooh and ah over the fact that this puppet looks so real. And it's already here on the mark. A healthy human being is there. So we've already bridged this gap.
We just gotta push it up. I think the best.
We're almost in the refinement part, right?
Yeah. There's still an issue with materials, if I remember. The last I read, there was
what?
Issue with materials because it was in one of those you and your robot get in a wreck and it ends up getting burned. The materials don't burn like you would see a normal.
No.
movie. But that was one of the issues that we're going on, trying to make it more realistic. The best example I saw, or I have been given for the Uncanny Valley, is one of the old China dolls of little girls, girls dolls. And then think about the movies where the doll comes to life. How creeped out do you get between the little doll just sitting there, kind of creepy, to the little doll moving? You flip out. And it's that, because you know it's not real.
Right.
But it looks real. And it's that difference in cognizance. Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't normally, I backed up a slide. I wouldn't normally use Vanity Fair as a source. But in this picture, one of these women is a doll that can be animated. And one of these women is the actual model. And you got to look for a while to figure out which one's which.
I'm almost positive the one standing is the robot.
I think it's actually, if I remember right, it's the one that's sitting that's the actual robot.
Really?
Oh, wow.
The one that's standing, and I'm sure she's working kind of hard to look
see.
a little,
Robotic.
right, robotic
sell
in her
the
pose, you know? But the fact that it can even be done, and you're not sure, is pretty huge. So yeah, dolls that come to life creep the hell out of us.
Yeah.
That's actually marked on here. A
Yes.
corpse, you know,
Yeah.
is about here. When you see a zombie, that's your emotional response to a zombie. But yeah, we're way past the thing scaring you like a zombie would.
Yeah.
Let's see what else we got. I'm blowing through this talk, so we're going to have plenty of time. Although I don't have hard numbers or empirical data like I do with Moore's Law, it's much harder to measure emotional responses.
Right.
It seems fairly clear that realistic human forms for robots aren't far away. Strong R&D support already exists in the entertainment industry.
Entertainment.
I mean, that's a type of entertainment, I suppose.
This will ease acceptance and accelerate growth of consumer robotics.
It'll also allow us to create It's a starting point. It's a starting point.
Yeah.
It's really the easiest starting point we have.
So this is, again, big drivers or exploration, and this goes back to the fact that we already have very, very capable robots, robust robots, that can do whatever we need them to do. They just don't look like humans. So the only real trick left is to make them look like humans.
When needed.
And the AI.
Right.
Yeah,
I'm not entirely sure I would want a diving robot that looked like a human.
It's
Right.
not necessary.
No.
That's absolutely
You
not
know
necessary.
exactly what that thing's meant to do, and
And when we send the space probe out, that doesn't have to look like a human either, right?
Not at all. Unless it's working with humans at the time.
But industrial robots, Pathfinder, Cassini, this Crabster thing that runs along the bottom of the ocean and takes samples on the ocean floor, they all do their jobs more effectively than any human ever could.
you don't have to worry about them getting injured.
You don't have to worry about them dying, getting killed, whatever. Which is the next slide.
There are several instances where divers just couldn't get to the bottom because something thought they looked tasty.
Safety is the other thing, right? We live in a world now where people are literally telling us we can't do certain things because it's not safe. You know, it's like, it's my life, it's my body. If I want to go scuba diving, I ought to be able to. But some lawyer says you can't, right? Because you'll sue somebody. So you get around all of this if you just build a robot to do whatever hazardous thing you need it to do.
Hazmat robots have actually come a very long way. I was a reactor technician in the Navy, and from what they told us, it effectively did everything that we would have been required to do in a hazmat suit for them. In hydrogen gas,
It's funny.
because that's not expensive at all.
Yeah.
Well, with the self-driving cars, I think, honestly, I'm a science teacher, I think the kids in my class,
Yes.
their children will never be allowed to drive a car. It'll be all self-driving and you will not be allowed to drive a car. And so the kids who are in my classroom now are kind of the last generation that I think will be allowed to drive a car for their
I think there'll
lives.
be recreational driving.
Yeah, but they'll probably say you have to stay off of these
Yeah,
roads
closed
and you have
tracks,
to,
you know.
yeah, you have to do it
Driving
under
theme parks and you
a
don't
controlled situation.
That'll be
I mean,
It's going to be like we talked about this at DragonCon 2 months ago. It's going to be, there's too many people like their 64 Mustang that they paid lots and lots of money for. You know, it's got a gear shift on it, everything's manual on it, and now they don't want to retrofit it. It's going to be like the Second Amendment people. There's going to be a group of a significant number of people.
Out of court right to freedom.
You're not going to take my damn car away from me.
Yep.
The only way you're going to take my car away from me is if you kill me, right? So,
See, this is where I remember I'm in the world, so I go, okay.
yeah, that can be handy sometimes. So you're not going to, what we're not going to see is the autonomous traffic lights and things like that change automatically. You know, because this car can talk to this car, this one go through the intersection at 50 miles an hour, this one come right behind it at 50 miles an hour. Because there's always going to be some dipshit on the road that you're not going to be able to predict what he's doing.
Yep.
And so the traffic laws won't change, the traffic lights won't change, the infrastructure won't change probably in our lifetime.
I
But
feel
the
like
cars will be here in 5 years, which is why I had to change my estimate.
I feel like the fact that this won't be made, because I believe you're right about that, because there will be people that will not give up their cars for X, Y, and Z reason.
Yeah.
However-
Fit up and work with existing or with new technologies.
I feel like the punishments will become harsher for that,
Yeah.
because
Or the cost.
What it costs.
yeah,
The,
the
I
cost
mean,
will become higher.
Yeah.
Because
It's getting a license won't be something that everybody just does anymore, right? It'll be harder to qualify for. It'll be like flying a plane. It'll be like getting a pilot's license. And you'll have to pay $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 in training and all that just to even qualify to take the test to get the pilot's license. And then you'll still have to pass the test, right?
And require technology in your car that will communicate with all the devices on the road.
But there's enough people with enough money that the manually driven cars aren't going to go away. Not in our lifetime. And again, as was with so many of these things, and you'll see it again when we talk, if you come back to my panel at 3. With so many of these things, it's psychology that stops us, not the technology.
Right.
It's the behavior of the herd that keeps certain things from happening, not the fact whether it's technically feasible or not. Before I change this slide, you guys are going to laugh when we go to the next slide. Before I change this slide, I wanted to bring up the Fukushima robot, just because you mentioned it, radiation. Yeah, it's died. It basically died from radiation sickness. So they're having to rebuild those robots because the radiation inside the core was so bad as it was pushing the rods down and trying to fix the reactor that it just stopped working.
Well, the rods weren't the problem. It was that the shell itself shattered and they couldn't keep any water in the core to keep the rods.
Yeah. And it was detailed.
We were required to do a study on this.
So, okay, we've already hit it, right?
Yeah.
We've already covered this slide. But it is coming. And I think texting and driving is going to be the big thing.
It's going to be driving force.
There's way too many dipshits that aren't paying attention to what they're doing behind the wheel.
But with this, they won't have to. Someone will buy it.
Exactly.
Budweiser just made a merge.
Pardon me?
Budweiser just did an autonomous driving truck.
Yeah.
Not like
Yeah.
2-3 weeks ago.
Denver to Colorado Springs. Again, it's a different talk, but I've got one on just autonomous cars. Google, of course, is going for the Google car, whatever they call that.
Yeah.
Google's not even, I'm not even sure Google's the forerunner anymore. I made this talk a year ago, and you hear a lot more about Tesla than you do Google.
Yeah, and Ford.
Yeah, well, Ford. Ford's the one that said that they were going to come out with an affordable car by 2021.
By manufacturing stock for cars.
I actually know someone that actually drove in the Google self-driving car. He said it was terrifying.
That's funny. You drove too fast for him, too slow for him, braking hard? What
No,
was-
just the other drivers around the car scared him
Because he had no control.
Yeah. He couldn't duck.
It's giving them ultimate control.
But to have a car that you can stick a kid in and say, take my kid to school for me.
Tesla actually had a really cool idea,
Bus does?
and I had to chew on it. You know, he gave this presentation. I gave this, it was about a month back. He said, this car is so affordable, talking about his latest model of autonomous car. He said, this car, yeah, it's $100,000, but it's so affordable that you can buy the car, and you can sign up for Uber, and you can just send the car out at night to go pick up fares,
Sweet.
and it will pay for itself.
Exactly.
That would scare the hell out of me.
All I heard is you told your car to get a job and he did it.
Get a job.
Yeah, but do you really want to send your $100,000 car off to go pick
Oh,
up people at
absolutely
the
not.
airport? Yeah.
Party.
Without watching it, and God only knows what they're going to do to this thing, right?
Insured.
I mean, that's why you place a camera inside of it and
Yeah.
get the video recorded back to your house. And then,
Video-
congrats, you have video recording. Who destroyed your car? Congratulations, their insurance. is
Well, it's
paid.
like owning rental property, though. You might know exactly who the bad guy is. You still got to get money out of him.
Right.
You know?
Turn blood.
Yeah.
Whole thing.
Blood out of the stone. Yeah. That picture always makes me laugh. There's it goes to some evil part of me. I always feel guilty when I laugh at it. And the guy just texted away.
Until you gotta go pick them up.
You'll see that again at 3.
Yeah, scrape them up or cut them out of the car. I'm done.
You'll see that same picture again when we do the talk at 3, because that's exactly what everybody's mama's going to want to avoid, right? And they'll be willing to pay dearly to do it.
Yep.
But the tangent we just went off on argues that we're not even going to have to pay that much for it. When the cost is in line with what you're already paying, and some mama comes along and says, just do it for the children, you're toast.
Yeah.
It's done.
No, you're done.
Stick a fork in you, you're done.
I figure football's got another 10, 15 years and it's done.
Yep.
Yep.
Again, the whole,
And they know
we
it.
have to be safe no matter what
They know it.
mentality, right?
Using a bubble.
Other big drivers are the war on, take your pick. The war on drugs, the war on terrorism, the war on whatever the hell they think of next.
So we're on jobs.
Damn it! Stop stealing my thunder, people! So yeah, Uncle Sam's got plenty of money, right? So
Our
again,
money. Yeah.
our money,
Yeah.
absolutely, but they don't care. And
It won't be so much soon.
these things, that mule down there is actually pretty impressive. I mean, it's meant to carry, I think, something like 400 to 500 pounds worth of material, and it walks like a horse.
The mountains of Afghanistan, that's where they're,
That's like, wow.
It is. And yes, you can put a machine gun on it.
Yes, you
You can put a belt-fed machine gun on it, and it can become a soldier too.
The military actually has a rule against autonomous weapons.
They do.
Yeah.
They're having debates about that now.
Yes.
Is how do you decide when to give artificial intelligence the right to decide when to kill something?
I like Asimov's theory, sorry. Three rules.
Well, in the commercial industry, you know it's going to be Asimov's theory. It's going to be
I would hope so.
do no harm. First, do no
It's
harm.
got to, yeah.
But that's okay. The military will play with the other end of it. They took our jobs! You guys are no fun, man. You steal all my thunder. And when I did that at Dragon Con, everybody in the audience went, they took our jobs! In unison. It was funny as hell. It's like, okay, we all have South Park fans. But yeah, this is one of the things that's holding us back. I forgot to point something out when we were talking about the Google cars too. In the car talk, because I have to talk about autonomous cars. This is part of what's holding us back. There's all kinds of dangerous, dirty, and dull jobs that a lot of people still have, millions of people still have, hundreds of millions of people still have. And they are not going to be happy with robots replacing them.
When they start.
Well,
All the farm work.
and I think that's a conversation that needs to be had is when everything's automated,
What do we do?
what do we do and how do we make a living? How do we keep fed?
got a book for you, read a book called Abundance.
Abundance?
Economics of abundance.
Because the problem right now is all the money's going to the guy that owns the robot plant,
Yes.
right? And so there's a handful of people that are going to be really, really wealthy. The top 1%, I think, control something like 50% of all the wealth in the world. So 1% of the world has 50% of the wealth already. And there's got to be some mechanism that redistributes that, just so the rest of it don't starve.
The other issue with it, especially the jobs, is the flexibility of the robots isn't anywhere close to it. So if we're making bicycles and we're welding up bicycles, if I've got a professional welder there, when bicycle orders drop down, then I can shift over to welding something else
Right.
in minutes. And where robots specialize, I mean, how many of you know factories that go, okay, the orders aren't good, but I tell you what we're going to do this week is we're going to plant trees out on this area and we get carbon emissions from it. So all you guys, the robots can't shift
Right.
that quickly.
Not yet.
Not
Yeah,
yet.
until
But,
you
Again,
have the,
it takes a lot of
keystrokes to
time and
change
work to
programming.
reprogram a robot.
but the tooling too. I mean, hands are very, hands aren't really efficient for doing.
Let's see.
Again, you wouldn't design a robot to dig coal that was humanoid. You design a specialized
Depends
robot.
upon what flexibility.
I
you
don't
want.
think I have it in here, which is surprising to me. It's got to be in there somewhere. Maybe that was in my industrial robotics talk. There is a robot called Baxter,
Yeah.
and it literally, you teach it by taking it by the hand, setting it on the assembly again, setting it up on the assembly line, wheels over, got the legs and stuff, you lock it down, you set it in front of the assembly line, and you grab its hand and you say, grab this part over here. And then you pick it up, and you say, do this to it, and then you say, set it down over here. And then repeat. So this goes back to the reference about how even the programmers are going to be out of jobs
Yeah.
too much longer, right? You don't have to be a rocket scientist to tell that robot, wheel that robot over to another station, and tell that robot, this is what I want you to do now.
Well, that's
Right
an
now.
interesting new industry, though.
Hmm?
You're trained as a robot trainer.
Well, yeah.
that is two-legged, two-armed. The Navy's still doing research on it. You may
Yeah, it's
know
not
more.
on ships yet, but
But
they're.
it's not on ships, but they're doing research. You give them another 10 or 15 years, this thing will be
less.
autonomous.
But yeah, back to the beer run from Denver to Colorado, the semi truck, right? It's automated. The same people that are doing the Google car, some of them have split off and started a company that does semi trucks,
Well, and
self-driving semi trucks.
BMW's doing their own, you know.
They can be retrofitted to existing semi-tractor trailer trucks for $40,000.
So, unfortunately, the next step after semi-autonomous robots is the robotics rights group.
The robotics.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We gotta have rights for them too, right?
That's right, because, you know, we can't take advantage of these poor robots.
Robots
They
feel
have to
too,
have their
damn
own
it!
right- Exactly.
Except for
Robots
we
are
don't put the
humans
feeling
too.
circuit in.
Oh, wait, huh?
So yeah,
We never put the feeling circuit in. Well, how are they feeling?
the 5-year window for automating semi-tractor trailer trucks and cars.
Started 2 years ago.
Yeah, well, yeah, it started 2 years ago, but the problem's not the technology. Again, it's gonna be fighting the truckers union.
Yeah.
Because $40,000, it's like you could fire that trucker, put this thing in here, and it's paid for itself in the first year, literally.
And it doesn't need naps or any of that stuff.
Right.
Now, you run the truck 24/7.
Or sleep. It doesn't need breaks between runs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the
An example of
Never
kind of
needs
what
to
you're
be.
talking about, if you consider a CNC device a robot, which
Uh-huh.
it kind of is. I remember when you first started, everybody had to program them. Now you can literally program them by drawing a pin around a part, and it will follow and machine that part. But instead of putting people out of work, what it's done is made micro manufacturing. Now everybody can afford a CNC. I mean, how many of you own
Yeah.
one? You know,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, so that, I mean, yeah, it's all
That's,
right.
that's the general gist of the book Abundance, is that it talks about how we can solve
Yes.
through technology all the needs that you know, all your basic needs of shelter, food, water. We can solve those now
Yeah,
through technology to where you don't have to do anything. You don't need to work. You don't need to have a job, and we can solve those through technology.
the resources are there, we just have to find some fair way.
So who are you going to fight if they walked out there today and said, Dr. Ben Davis doesn't need a job anymore, he can just go home,
Yeah,
we're going to take care of his...
He's gonna go to constant drink.
Right.
I'm good.
We can take care of his shelter, his water, his, food, and every need.
Right.
Who are you going to fight?
The only
Because
problem
you're
is there's no money in that. There are too many people that are.
Right.
Exactly.
There's no profit motivation there.
Exactly.
That is the problem.
Too many people
So
want
we're
to.
going to become communists.
And again, that's a social problem, not a technical one.
Right.
Yep.
So, okay, well, we gotta get this one in here, because I completely go against the grain on this one. Will the robots ever turn on us? That's what everybody's afraid of, Terminator scenario, right? Well, I think not, right? We've been breeding dogs for the qualities that we want to see in them for the last 30,000 years.
So far, so good. Yeah, pretty right.
And the only time dogs turn on us is when we train them to.
When we act like shitheads ourselves, right?
Treat them badly.
You're gonna say something?
And, well, yeah, I was, but you distracted me.
Sorry.
No, I think the thought process that robots will turn on us is anthropomorphizing the robots too much.
Yes,
They are not us.
yes.
We would turn on us in our
We turn on us, we turn on ourselves all the time.
The robots don't care.
Robots aren't gonna do that.
Because it's not logic
unfortunately,
driven.
No, that's the big problem, is
Well,
that if you get
Just don't
intelligence
give them
close to
free
human-
will.
No, if you get the intelligence close to human, the only example we have of that
Yeah.
right now is humans. And
Are
we know
humans.
that humans will turn on other humans.
And we know that's not a good idea.
But,
But
Somebody will
the
do it.
worry is
Somebody
with the
will do it.
robots is the reprogramming of the robots by
Yes,
other people.
exactly.
I mean, it's real.
Yeah,
It's
that
a short
was-
trip from a predator drone to a gang member
Right.
getting hold of a predator drone.
life was a lot harsher 30,000 years ago. People were a lot tougher and they were a lot meaner
To each other, yes.
to each other, and yet we still have pets that we've domesticated, and we love them more than we do usually the people around us, right? Especially
I'm not so
myself.
sure about cats.
I'm not so sure about cats either.
Cats are useless.
They don't, yeah. They're not as good of an example because cats are just there. I've never seen a seeing-eye cat. You know?
No, I haven't.
But
Literally.
I forgot to go something earlier about just when I took out the maintenance before the tires run it. I'm worried about the tire from just small like that. That's probably not going to be our big company.
well, when you start talking about the cars and stuff, and the autonomous cars that are all electric, you're going to need 3 times the power requirements.
Yes, but we haven't innovated in battery pressure well at all, so we need to work on that better than anything else.
Right. Well, there are people that are working.
Yeah, but it's going to take about 30 years, maybe more. Depends.
Possibly. What else have we got? I think we're just about done.
8 minutes.
No, we're doing good on time. We timed this out even with the audience participation. We timed this out pretty well. That's my predictions for the future. If you want to read them, you don't have to, because predicting the future is kind of a dicey thing ever since you work out, as we'll talk about at 3 if you come back. But
4?
is it 4? 4.
I think it's 4 to 5. It's 4.
Get here early.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want you here early, damn it. I love the quote from Marie Curie. Nothing in life is to be feared, only understood. Now's the time to understand more so that we may fear less. You know, I don't think the robots are anything to be afraid of. Oh! Almost forgot to mention it. Not that one.
Use that
This
picture on every.
No, I have different ones. I do like the alien.
That's cool. Yeah.
It's the whole debunking thing, right? I like making fun of the aliens.
Okay.
People. Ex Machina.
Till our rewards come.
If you've not seen it, that's a really good movie.
That is excellent.
That's a dark movie. I know how you guys are. You like dark stuff, most of it. The Robot and Frank is a lighthearted kind of movie. You know, it deals with some issues, but it's not real dark. That one's a really good movie, but it's also really dark.
Yeah.
So, if you think the Terminator's scary, you ought to check that chick out. So, okay, yep, now we're at the end. So, we did it right with 6 minutes to go. Any questions, any comments, anything else before we move on?
It comes down to who programs.
It absolutely comes down to who programs.
We just have to remember the first law of mad science. Never create something you can't destroy.
This thing's indestructible.
I'll just turn off.
Blow it out.
Just
Blow it
as a
up.
parent.
I mean, it turns out even halfway into Star Trek that Data had a button on the back of his neck, right?
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
always did. Yeah.
Cheek. Done.
But notice he didn't tell anybody about it except the doctor at
Yeah.
first.
Yeah, why would he?
Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
why would you,
tell anybody?
if you had a button that turned you off, would you tell people?
Let me turn off. Let me turn off.
I was about to say, if I had a button that turned me on, I'd be like, press right here.
Push here. Push here.
Press it right here, yeah.
But only her.
I work in maintenance for GP Aviation,
Uh-huh.
and it's something we actually mockingly say to the operators out on the machine, I'm sorry, the machinists
Uh-huh.
out on the machines, is that you should be 10% smart, at least 10% smarter than the machine you're working on. Except we usually use 1%. The original was 10%. We say you should be at least 1% smarter than the machine you're exactly right.
And there's something very telling. I used to work at GE too, but not down in the plant. I worked up in the building, you know,
Oh, and energy?
turbine lab.
Oh, right, energy, yeah.
Yeah. But there's something very telling even in what you said there. We call them machinists, but they're the guys that operate the machines.
Yeah.
They push a button, they're not using it.
Right.
But machinists.
They push a button and they watch it go.
No, now they push the button and watch their phones, but.
Oh, yeah, of course. They push the button and they're paid to watch the machine to make sure it doesn't break, but they're not even watching the machine anymore.
That's why I'm wiring in more and more stuff to tell them to do it.
But machinists are coming back.
Yep.
I'm not surprised. Last job, we had several machinists and they're great guys and stuff. The biggest thing there is they don't get paid that well because there's so many of them.
Starting their own businesses.
Oh, just push this.